When I got married, I didn't tell my husband or my mother-in-law that the house we live in belongs to me. And I'm glad I didn't because right after the wedding, my mother-in-law and my husband— Before I continue, tell me how often you listen to stories like this, and if you've subscribed to the channel or liked it. Enjoy listening. At that time, Dmitry came into my life. I had just promised myself to focus only on my career when Dmitry joined our office as the new head of sales. He was tall, confident, with warm brown eyes and a soft smile that seemed just for me. I worked as a senior key account manager and we often worked together. One day he said, "Veronica, you really understand clients well. Maybe we can talk about a new strategy over dinner." I agreed, even though I usually avoided this kind of thing. That was 6 years ago. I had just turned 28 and finally bought my own house. It was small but cozy, in a quiet part of the city. It took me 5 years to save every penny for that house. I denied myself many things and took on extra work. When I finally got the keys, I promised myself this was the start of my independent life. Dinner with Dmitry lasted until midnight. We talked about everything but work. He told me about his travels, dreams, and ambitions. I realized I hadn't met someone so interesting in a long time. When he walked me home, he asked, "Where do you live?" I hesitated. For some reason, I didn't want to show him my home, my biggest treasure and pride. So I lied and said, "I rent an apartment near the city center." At that time, Dmitry had only been back from abroad for 6 months and hadn't bought a home yet. But he said it was temporary. Our relationship grew quickly. Dmitry was kind, gave me compliments and gifts, and always seemed to know exactly what I wanted, like magic. The first time he stayed over, he looked around my house carefully. "Your friend has a beautiful home," he said. "She probably rents it cheaply." I lied again without thinking. "This is my grandmother's house. She lives with her sister in another city and let me live here." "You're lucky to have your grandmother," Dmitry said, running his hand along the wall. "Real estate like this is expensive now." Something in his look made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling away. 2 weeks later, he introduced me to his mother, Elena Petrovna. She was a strong woman around 60, with sharp eyes and the manners of a school principal. She looked me up and down like she was judging me, then smiled stiffly. Finally, Dmitry had found a girl who suited him. Lunch with his mother was strange. Elena Petrovna asked me many questions about my work, family, and future plans. She was especially interested in my family. "So, you say you only have a grandmother left? Does she have a house? Where is it?" I gave vague answers, because her sharp gaze made me uncomfortable. After lunch, when Dmitry went outside to smoke, she took my hand and said, "Veronica, I see you're a good girl. Dmitry needs someone like you, a careful and promising woman. I'm very happy for you." There was something fake in her words, but I couldn't figure out what. Dmitry noticed my mood and said, "Don't worry about her. She's just concerned about me." Then I told her. After my parents divorced, I stayed with my mother. She got used to taking care of me. They divorced a long time ago. When I was 5, my father left and moved to another country. We haven't seen him since. I nodded, feeling sorry, though the story felt very common, something anyone could make up in 2 minutes. But my feelings for Dmitry made me ignore my doubts. 3 months later, Dmitry proposed to me. We were at the restaurant where we had our first date when suddenly he got down on one knee. "Veronica, you are the best thing that's happened to me. Will you marry me?" The ring with a small diamond shined in the candlelight. My heart raced and my mind was full of thoughts, but I said, yes. Getting ready for the wedding was a real challenge. Elena Petrovna tried to control everything, from the color of the tablecloths to the guest list. Dmitry acted strange. He seemed to support me, but at important moments, he always agreed with his mother. "She's not doing anything wrong," Dmitry said. "She has organized dozens of weddings for her students. She was the school principal before retiring. She's a natural manager." I wanted to check this, so I called the school where she said she worked and asked about Elena Petrovna. The secretary was surprised. We never had a director with that name. Maybe you mean Elena Pavlovna Zimina? She was the head teacher about 10 years ago. This small lie made me see my future mother-in-law differently. What else was she hiding? And why did Dmitry support her story? Once, while preparing the invitations, I asked about Dmitry's family. Besides your mother, who else will we invite? Dmitry hesitated. Well, my family is small. Mom has a couple of cousins. The rest live far away and won't come. I'll invite friends, classmates, and some colleagues from my last job. I don't like big, noisy parties. I'll invite only the closest people. But I had to invite all of Dmitry's relatives, especially my grandmother. Dmitry kept bringing up my fake grandmother, the owner of the house. This happened more and more often, almost by accident. Dmitry or his mother would start talking about my grandmother, her health, her age. How old is she? How does she live alone? Does she have memory problems? I kept up the fake story, feeling like the lie was taking on a life of its own. For some reason, it felt important not to tell the truth about the house. It wasn't that I didn't trust Dmitry, it was just my gut telling me to keep the secret. 1 week before the wedding, I came home early and overheard a conversation between Dmitry and Elena Petrovna. I opened the door quietly and heard their voices in the kitchen. "Mom, don't rush things," Dmitry said. "We're just getting married. Time doesn't wait," she snapped. The old lady could come back anytime or do something else. "Are the papers ready?" "Yes, Karpov did everything. We just need the signature. Act right after the wedding. Don't delay like last time." Remember how it ended? I froze, too scared to move. What were they talking about? What last time? My heart was beating so loudly, I thought they'd hear me. "Last time was different," Dmitry said sharply. "Back then it was an apartment. Now it's a whole house. And Veronica isn't stupid. We all think clearly until we fall in love." Elena Petrovna laughed. "Can you handle it? You're doing well." I quietly stepped back to the front door and then slammed it loudly, pretending I had just come in. "I'm home," I shouted, trying to sound normal. "We have guests." Dmitry looked out with a calm smile. "Mom stopped by and brought salads for tomorrow. You're early today." The meeting was cancelled, I said, walking into the kitchen and greeting Elena Petrovna. She was sitting at the table, sorting papers, and quickly put them away when she saw me. "Veronica, you look pale. Are you okay?" "I'm just tired. Work has been stressful lately." "It's okay. You'll rest soon. After the wedding, you'll go on a honeymoon, then live peacefully in this beautiful house. Just like your grandmother, by the way." They said my real grandmother was not going to come to the wedding. They looked at their son, and at that moment I knew my gut feeling was right. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Even after hearing that, I didn't cancel the wedding. Partly because I didn't believe Dmitry would do something bad. Partly because I wanted to see what would happen next. I've always been a bit of an adventurer. Maybe that's why I lived alone. I wasn't afraid to take risks and make tough decisions. The wedding was simple. We got married at the Legislative Assembly and had a small dinner with close friends and family. Unfortunately, my real grandmother couldn't come. She's 82, and it's hard for her to travel. Elena Petrovna was very polite to my parents. She gave them many compliments and said how wonderful a daughter they raised. "It's a shame your mother couldn't come," she said to my mom. "Veronica talks so warmly about her, and they say her house is beautiful." My mom looked surprised. "You must be mistaken. My mother lives in a small one-room apartment." Elena Petrovna paused but quickly recovered. "Oh, I'm sorry. I must have confused something. So much information before the wedding." After that, my mother-in-law didn't bother my parents again. I quietly told my mom it was just a misunderstanding, but from Elena Petrovna's eyes, I could tell she knew I was hiding something. We didn't go on a honeymoon because Dmitry said he was busy with work. Instead, he moved in with me, and our life together started right after the wedding. The first few days were good. Dmitry was caring, helped around the house, and even made breakfast. But then things changed. He began staying late at work more often and came home tired and quiet. His mother called him several times a day, and they whispered for a long time while I was in another room. One evening, Dmitry came home with flowers and a bottle of wine. "Let's celebrate 15 days of marriage," he smiled, kissing me. "I have something important to tell you." We had dinner and drank wine, and just when I thought he wouldn't say anything, the doorbell rang. Elena Petrovna was standing at the door with a cake. "I won't disturb your family evening," she said, but she came in without waiting. She wanted to check how we were doing. They looked at Dmitry, and I knew this surprise visit was planned. "We were just about to talk about the future," Dmitry said, pouring himself some wine. "About our future together." "Great idea." Elena Petrovna sat down, looking around the room like she was checking everything. A young family needs clear plans. I spilled my tea, trying not to show how nervous I was. Something told me this evening would be important. "My mother and I have an idea," Dmitry said, hugging me. "We've been thinking about our future." I took a sip of tea, trying to act casual. "You see," Dmitry spoke quietly, choosing his words carefully. "We need to think about careers, children, and our future together." Elena Petrovna nodded so hard her big earrings shook. "Veronica, dear, you are a young family. Now is the time to make plans and build a strong foundation. Stability is what matters." I answered carefully, "I agree, but what exactly do you mean?" Dmitry's mother said, "Dmitry deserves to grow in his career. He has more potential than his current job shows." I talked to an old friend who owns a construction company. "I'm ready to hire Dmitry as the commercial director." I looked at Dmitry surprised. "Are you going to change jobs? Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted it to be a surprise," Dmitry said, looking confused. "I decided to find out more. The salary is twice as much there. What about our company? We work together. We have projects. Nothing will change for you." He kissed me on the cheek. "You will keep working, and I will take care of the family better." Something didn't make sense. Dmitry never complained about his job. He also had no experience in construction. "When do you start?" I asked. "In 2 weeks," he said without looking at me. "Everything is decided." "Was it decided without me?" "I wanted to make you happy." "That's great news," Elena Petrovna said, noticing I wasn't happy. "Veronica, you must support your husband. This is a big step forward for your family," Elena Petrovna said with a meaningful smile. "You will soon need more money." "Why?" I asked. She looked at Dmitry and said, "Children need money. It's time to think about having a baby." I felt myself blush with frustration. Dmitry and I had never talked seriously about children. Yes, I liked the idea of becoming a mother someday, but not now. My career was just starting. "We haven't planned to have children yet," I said firmly. "At least not soon." Elena Petrovna's face became serious and cold. "We haven't planned," she repeated. "Dmitry, you didn't tell me this." Dmitry looked confused, shifting his gaze between me and his mother. "We haven't talked about it in detail yet." "What is there to talk about?" his mother interrupted. "Children are needed. You should have them while you're young. Veronica, you're not 20 anymore." "I'm 29, and I want to build my career first," I said calmly. "A career won't keep you warm when you're old," Elena Petrovna said with a smile. "But children and grandchildren will." Dmitry tried to calm things down. "We will have time to talk about everything." "Time waits for no one," she said, putting down her cup so hard that tea spilled. "I see we won't agree today. I'll go home. It's late." When the door closed behind her, I felt the tension ease a little. Dmitry looked at me with guilt. "Sorry about Mom. She worries too much about our future." "For our future or yours?" I asked, starting to clear the table. "What do you mean?" "It's strange you talk about having my baby without asking me." He hugged me from behind, burying his face in my hair. "I love you and want a real family." "What's strange about that?" "The strange thing is you didn't ask my opinion about your new job or about children." "This is our life, Dima. I just wanted what's best." I had heard that phrase before. It's a common excuse for anything. The next days were calm on the outside. Dmitry was kind, cooked dinner, and didn't talk about children. But something was different. I noticed he whispered on the phone, stepping onto the balcony. He looked at papers and quickly hid them when I came in. One evening, While sorting through the closet, I found a strange folder with papers. Inside the folder were papers about buying and selling real estate and gift wills. Dmitry's name was on several papers as the person getting the property. There were also photos of middle-aged women. Some had notes on the back like, Galina Stepanovna, apartment on Lenin Street. Vera Nikolaevna, house outside the city. I started sweating cold. What does this mean? Does Dmitry have some real estate plan? Or worse, is he involved with single women who own property? I heard a key in the lock and quickly put the folder back. Dmitry came into the bedroom with flowers. Hello, darling. I wanted to make you happy. I took the flowers and smiled. Thank you, they're very beautiful. I planned a small party tomorrow to celebrate leaving my job. You'll come, right? Of course, I said, thinking about the folder in the closet. Who will be there? Our whole team. I'll introduce you to everyone. That felt strange. We had worked at the same company for over a year, and Dmitry never wanted to introduce me to his colleagues. When we first dated, he kept our relationship secret. Now suddenly there was going to be a party. The next day I was a little late and arrived at the restaurant after Dmitry. He was already sitting at a big table with about 10 people, talking loudly. Then he stood up and said, "Meet my wife, Veronica." I greeted everyone, but noticed something odd. I didn't know a single person there. None were from our company. Dima, where are Sergey and Anna? I asked when we sat down. They couldn't come. Dmitry waved me off. These are my closest friends. I looked at the group, confused. In a whole year, I never heard of these people. Next to me sat a heavy-set woman about 50 years old. She said, "I'm Margarita Pavlovna. It's nice to meet Dima's wife." She patted my hand. "I've heard a lot about you." "Really?" I asked, surprised. How do you know Dmitry?" "Oh, his mother and I have been friends a long time from the school where she taught." She said taught. I frowned. I thought Elena Petrovna was the director. Margarita Pavlovna paused. "Well, yes, she taught first, then became the director." "How long have you known each other?" "About a year," she said. I wondered who this woman really was. "Since Dmitry started working at our company?" "Your company?" She raised her eyebrows. "I thought he worked with Victor." She nodded at a middle-aged man at the other end of a table. While I tried to understand all this, Dmitry tapped his glass with a fork to get attention. "Friends, I want to make a toast to a new stage in my life, to my new job, and most of all, to my wonderful wife who makes me happy every day." Everyone clapped, and I sat there feeling like the ground was slipping beneath me. Who are these people? And who is my husband really? After dinner, while we were riding home in a taxi, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Who are all those people? Dima, why did you say they were colleagues? I didn't say colleagues. I said friends, he said, still looking out the window. But you said it was a work party. And who is Victor? Victor? He's just an old acquaintance. Mom asked him to come. What does it matter, Veronica? Everything went fine. It's not about the party. It's about how you always hide things. The strange phone calls, the papers you hide. And now these friends I don't know. He laughed, but it didn't sound real. Are you spying on me? What documents? What calls? Are you imagining things? It's not my imagination, Dima. What's going on? Nothing is going on, he said, taking my hand. You're just tired. You've been working too hard. Maybe you should take a vacation to rest. I pulled my hand away. Don't treat me like a child. I want the truth. The truth about what? His voice got irritated. About you, about your mother, about what you're doing. He was quiet for a long time, then said quietly, You're making things more complicated. I just want a normal family, a wife, kids, a house. What's wrong with that? Nothing, as long as it's a true wish and not part of some plan. We stayed silent for the rest of the ride. At home, Dmitry went straight to take a shower. I stayed in the kitchen, thinking about everything. My gut was screaming that something was wrong, but I couldn't figure it out. I took out my phone and called my school friend Natasha, who works in the police. Natasha, hi. Sorry for calling late. Can you check something for me? That depends on what, she answered carefully. I need to know if a man named Dmitry Overin was ever in trouble with the police. Your husband? Natasha was surprised. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Just check for me. Okay. Also check on his mother, Elena Petrovna Overina. There was silence. Are you okay? Is he hurting you? No, everything is fine. I just feel something is wrong. Okay. I'll check. But be careful. I hung up and then jumped when I heard a voice behind me. Who are you talking to? Dmitry asked, standing in the kitchen doorway, drying his hair with a towel. I decided not to lie about Natasha. I hadn't talked to her for a long time. At this hour, he looked at his watch. It was almost 11. She worked late. Dmitry went to the fridge and took a bottle of water. Still upset about tonight? He asked. I'm not angry. I'm just tired of things being left unsaid. He sat across from me and held my hands. Veronica, I really love you. Maybe I don't always say or do the right things, but I want us to be happy. Let's forget all doubts and start fresh. I looked into his eyes and saw something strange: calculation, coldness, and control. But part of me wanted to believe he was sincere, this man I had chosen to spend my life with. Okay, I said, deciding to give him one last chance. Let's start over, but with total honesty. He smiled. No secrets. The next morning, Dmitry left for a supposed interview at a new company. I decided to check the folder I found in the closet, but it was gone. I searched the whole house, but found nothing. He must have taken the papers, sensing I was suspicious. That evening, Natasha called. Veronica, I have information, but not on the phone. Let's meet. We agreed to meet at a cafe near my house. I told Dmitry I was meeting work friends. Natasha was waiting, nervously twisting her coffee cup. What did you find out? I asked. Veronica, your husband and his mother are not who they say they are, she whispered. There were complaints from 2 women about Dmitry Overin, but the case is closed for lack of proof. They accuse him of fraud and emotional abuse. I felt cold inside. Fraud? I asked. Yes. He met single women who owned property, married them, and then had the property put in his name. The women ended up with nothing. And his mother, Elena Petrovna Overina, is not a school principal. She never was. She has a criminal record for forgery from about 15 years ago. Now she officially works as a real estate consultant. I covered my face with my hands. Oh God, how was I so blind? Veronica, are you in danger? Natasha put a hand on my shoulder. I need to help you. No. I shook my head. He hasn't hurt me physically. And the house? The house is mine, Natasha. It's my property. I lied to him and said it was my grandmother's. My friend raised her eyebrows in surprise. Why? I don't know. Intuition, I guess, I said with a bitter smile. And now they're trying to trick him. What will you do? I don't know yet. But now that I know the truth, I can protect myself. When I got home, Dmitry and Elena Petrovna were quietly talking in the kitchen. When they saw me, they stopped talking right away. Veronica, you're early, Dmitry said with a tense smile. Mom stopped by for tea. Hello, Elena Petrovna, I said like nothing was wrong. How are you? Wonderful, dear. And how was your meeting with your colleagues? Very interesting, I said, looking at them in a new way. I learned a lot about new legal details and real estate registration. Elena Petrovna put her cup down and looked at me closely. I didn't know you cared about things like that. I didn't before, but now it seems important. Especially with our family situation. Dmitry came over and put his arm around me. We were just talking about our weekend plans with my mom. Maybe we should go out of town, just you and me, to get away from everything and be alone. His attempt to change the subject was so obvious, I almost laughed. Sounds nice, I said, but I have other plans. I want to visit my grandmother. They exchanged looks again. Elena Petrovna leaned forward. Your grandmother, the one who owns this house? I smiled innocently. I haven't seen her for a long time. I want to tell her about our wedding and show her photos. Dmitry, maybe you can come with me? Finally meet her. My husband turned pale. I have an important meeting with the new company's management. I can't miss it. That's too bad. Grandma wanted to meet you so much. Elena Petrovna nervously pulled at her blouse. And where does your grandmother live, Veronica? Maybe I could come with you? After all, I'm family now, too. That's very kind, but I'll go alone this time. Grandma isn't feeling well. It's hard for her to have many guests. Not feeling well? My mother-in-law raised her eyebrows. Age. I sighed. She's 84. Old age, memory problems. But she's still careful with documents. Always reads what she signs, even if it's just a gas bill. Elena Petrovna's face fell, and Dmitry started coughing, clearly uncomfortable. Well, give her our best wishes, my mother-in-law said as she stood up. I think I'll go now, I said. It was already late. When she left, Dmitry tried to hug me, but I moved away. What's wrong with you? He asked, frowning. You seem a little different today. I'm not different, I said, picking up the cups from the table. I'm just thinking about a lot of things. Like what? He asked. Like our life, our marriage, you. He sat on the edge of the table, crossing his arms. So, what have you decided? I looked him in the eyes and asked, Dima, have you ever been married before? He looked surprised. He blinked a few times and then laughed nervously. Of course not. Why do you ask? I'm just curious. It's strange that I know nothing about your past. Not about your ex-girlfriends, not about your family except your mother. I don't even know much about your father. I told you. My father left when I was 5. Yes, I remember that. What's his name? His last name? Is he still alive? Where does he live? Dmitry stood up, clearly annoyed. What difference does it make? He left our lives. I don't want to talk about him. What's wrong with you, Veronica? Nothing special. I just want to understand the man I married better. I saw him get nervous and avoid answering directly. I knew Natasha was right. This man was not who he said he was. Okay, let's leave it for now, I said with a small smile. You should get some sleep for your interview tomorrow. Right, he said, breathing a sigh of relief. Let's go to bed. I'll work a little more. You go ahead. That night, I couldn't sleep. I listened to my husband's calm breathing and thought, how did I not see that I married a trickster? What should I do now? Should I confront him and his mother, or wait for the right moment? In the morning, Dmitry left for his interview. I took the day off and went to the notary with all the house documents. I wanted to be sure nothing had changed about the ownership. The notary was an older man with sharp eyes. He carefully checked my papers. Everything is fine, he said finally. The house is completely yours. There are no problems. Can you check if anyone has tried to get copies or information about my property? I asked. He thought for a moment. There is no such information here. But if you're worried about fraud, I suggest you contact Rose Reister. They can give you a report on all transactions with your property. I thanked him and went straight to Rose Reister. I asked for a report on all transactions related to my house in the last 6 months. The answer would take 5 working days. On the way home, I stopped by Natasha's place. She was off work and invited me for tea. What are you planning to do? She asked when we sat down. For now, I'm just watching, I said. Collecting information. I want to fully understand their plan before I do anything. But what if they act first? They think the house belongs to my grandmother, who doesn't really exist. Without her, they can't do anything. Natasha thought for a moment while stirring her tea. Be careful. If they find out you know their plan, who knows how they'll react? I'll be careful, I said. But I can't just wait for them to come up with a new plan. What's your plan then? She asked. I want to learn everything about Dmitry and his mother's past. Find the women who complained about him, find out exactly what he did, and then I'll teach them a lesson. That sounds risky, Natasha said, shaking her head. Maybe it's easier to just get a divorce and let them go, so they can find a new victim. I put my hand on the table. No, Natasha, I want them to get what they deserve. Then I'll help you, she said, nodding firmly. I have access to databases. We'll find those women. When I got home, Dmitry wasn't there yet. I decided to use the chance to look carefully for the documents he was hiding. I searched all the cabinets and drawers, looked behind paintings, checked under the mattress. Nothing. He either took them with him or hid them very well. In frustration, I looked inside his work bag, which he always carried. To my surprise, it was unlocked. Inside were normal things: a laptop, a notebook, pens, a phone charger. I opened the notebook. It had notes about meetings, phone numbers, and some reminders. Nothing special. Then I noticed a small pocket on the side of the bag. I felt something hard inside, like a flash drive. It was a small, black flash drive without any labels. I hesitated, then plugged it into my laptop. There were several folders with harmless names: work, photos, documents. The work folder had files about our company, contracts, presentations, tables. There were photos too, from corporate events where Dmitry was, and even some pictures of us together. But in the documents folder, I found something that made my heart race. There were scans of passports, property papers, gift deeds, marriage certificates. I saw Dmitry's face in many of them, but he looked different hair, sometimes a beard or mustache. The worst part was the different last names: Dmitry Overin, Dmitry Sokolov, Dmitry Grimov. It was like he changed his identity like gloves. I looked through file after file, and a terrifying picture appeared. Dmitry met women who owned property, married them, then found ways to take control of their property. Sometimes through wills or gift deeds, other times through sale contracts. Then he disappeared, leaving the women with nothing but on the flash drive. There were even photos of these women, different ages, different looks. But they all had one thing in common: they looked lonely and trusting. I felt sick to my stomach. Could it be true? Did I look like that to him? An easy target? Among the files, one document shocked me the most. It was a diagram of my house with notes. Cost about $8 million. Registered in grandmother's name. Need to act through deed of gift. There was even a plan with steps. Wedding. Gain trust. Convince to sign deed of gift. Sell the house. Next property, an apartment downtown. I barely had time to copy all the files to my computer and put the flash drive back when I heard the door open. Dmitry came in. "Hello, darling," he said, entering the kitchen where I was pretending to cook dinner. "How was your day?" I asked, trying to sound normal. "And your interview?" "Great," he said. "They're very happy with me." He came behind me and hugged my waist. "They're offering a salary even higher than I expected. I start next Monday." "Congratulations," I said with a smile, though inside I was burning with anger. "We must celebrate," Dmitry said. "I already booked a table at the restaurant for tomorrow. My mother will join us." "Of course. How could we do without her?" I thought, unable to hide my sarcasm. Dmitry frowned. "What's wrong? Are you unhappy with my mother again?" "No, everything's fine. I'm just tired. Let's really relax this weekend. Just you and me." He smiled brightly. "Great idea. We can go to a recreation center outside the city. I know a great place." Of course you know, I thought. He was probably scouting another victim there. "Sounds tempting," I said. "But first, dinner. I cooked your favorite dish." I played the role of a caring wife all evening. But every time he touched me, I wanted to pull away. How did I not see the fakeness in his words and touch? How could I believe this man loved me? The next day, Natasha and I met in her car parked 2 blocks from my house. I gave her the flash drive with the copies of the files. "That's all I found. He's a professional con artist, Natasha. And I'm clearly not his first or last victim." She looked through some files and whistled. "Yeah, that's impressive." I found the contacts of some women who had made complaints against him. One of them agreed to meet today. "I'll go with you," Natasha said. "Are you sure? What about your husband?" "He thinks I'm at work. Tonight, we're going to a restaurant to celebrate his new job, with his mother, of course." Natasha shook her head. "This is very dangerous, Veronica. If I were you, I'd just leave him, get a divorce, and let him find a new victim." "No way. I want him to pay for everything he's done." We met Anna, one of Dmitry's ex-wives, in a quiet cafe on the edge of the city. She was tall and thin, about 40, with tired eyes and nervous movements. She flinched when I showed her a photo of Dmitry. "Yes, that's him," she said quietly. Back then, his name was Dmitry Sokolov, and he had a beard. "Tell me what happened?" I asked. She sighed and held her coffee cup tightly. "We met at an English class. He was so kind and caring. He said he wanted a family and children. I was lonely after my divorce. I had an apartment in the city center, inherited from my parents. We dated for 3 months, then he proposed." Her story sounded too familiar. I nodded for her to continue. "After the wedding, he insisted we sell the apartment and buy a house outside the city. He said the kids needed fresh air and space. I agreed. We found a house and put down a deposit. Then I had to sign papers to sell the apartment, but something didn't feel right. I showed the papers to a lawyer I knew. It turned out I was signing more than just a sales contract. There was a clause that said all the money from selling the apartment would go into an account under Dmitry's name. What did you do?" Of course, I refused to sign. I made a big scene, and the next day he took all his things and disappeared. I tried to find him, went to the police, but they said there wasn't enough proof of fraud. After all, he hadn't gotten my money yet. What about his mother? Did you know her? Anna nodded. Yes, Elena Petrovna. She kept interfering in our relationship, giving advice on how to live. She was the one who found that house outside the city. Said it was a good investment. They worked together, Natasha said. A family business. Anna finished her coffee. After he disappeared, I hired a private detective. He found out Dmitry had done this before. At least 2 other women lost their property because of him, but they couldn't prove anything. Are you ready to testify now? I asked. Anna shook her head. No, I just want to forget this. I was lucky not to lose my apartment. I don't want to go through that nightmare again. I didn't push her. After meeting Anna, Natasha and I went to the office. She showed me case files opened after a complaint by another woman, Marina Viktorovna. Their plan is always the same, Natasha said as she looked through the papers. They meet the woman, quickly start a relationship, get married, and then try to take her property. The only difference is how they do it. Sometimes they sell and buy a new house, sometimes they use a deed of gift, sometimes a will. But the result is always the same. The woman ends up losing her property, and your husband and his mother disappear. No one has caught them yet. They are smart. They never do anything that looks like obvious fraud. If a woman starts to suspect something, they just disappear and find a new victim. They always cover their tracks, change their names, phone numbers, and addresses. But I have proof, I said, showing her the flash drive. There's a whole collection of their schemes here. That might not be enough, Natasha sighed. We need to catch them red-handed, so they can't escape. We talked about a plan for a long time. By evening, I had an idea. It was risky, but could work. I decided to set a trap for Dmitry and his mother, give them what they want, but on my terms. That evening, we met at a restaurant as planned. Elena Petrovna was in a good mood, talking about Dmitry's future at his new job and how wonderful our future would be. I smiled and nodded, pretending to be the trusting wife. And how is your grandmother, Veronica? She suddenly asked, as if it was a casual question. Did you visit her over the weekend? No, I didn't, I answered. But we talked on the phone. She's not feeling well. Oh, what a pity, Elena Petrovna said, pretending to care. But she wasn't really worried. Maybe she wanted to visit her? She needs rest now. The doctors said she must stay in bed. Doctors? Dmitry asked. What's wrong with her? It's just old age, I shrugged. At her age, it's hard to manage the house alone. Elena Petrovna then started talking about putting the house in my name while my grandmother still could. She and my mother exchanged quick looks. I saw their eyes light up, thinking about easy prey. That's a smart decision, Elena Petrovna said slowly. At her age, you have to plan these things early. I don't think now is the right time to talk about this, Dmitry said quickly. Let your grandmother get better first. But this is important, son, his mother said. We need to think about the future. Grandma will be calmer if she knows the house is safe. You're right, Elena Petrovna, I said. I was just about to talk to you about this. Grandma wants me to visit in the next few days. She said she wants to make everything official. What a great idea. She almost jumped out of her chair with excitement. My friend is a notary, I said. He can help. He can even come to your grandmother's house if she can't move easily. That would be very helpful, Elena Petrovna said. Of course, dear. I'll arrange everything. When do you plan to go? I think this weekend. Wonderful. Dmitry will definitely go with you. Right, son? He nodded, trying to hide how happy he was. Of course, I'll finally meet your grandmother. She'll be glad. I smiled and sighed, knowing they had taken the bait. There's just one problem, I said. Grandma is very old-fashioned and stubborn. She wants to register the house only in my name. She believes property should pass only through the female side. Elena Petrovna's face changed. That's a bit unusual, she said. But you and Dmitry are family now. Maybe you could explain that to her. I tried, but you know how old people are. She's very stubborn. Mother and son looked at each other again, and I could almost feel them changing their plans. Well then, Elena Petrovna finally said, the important thing is that the house stays in the family. We'll figure out the rest later. Yes, you'll figure it out, I thought, sipping my wine. Just not the way you want. The rest of the evening was spent talking about the upcoming trip. I watched them make plans, not knowing that I already knew their real intentions. It was almost funny to see how excited they were, hiding their greed poorly. When we got home, Dmitry was very gentle and kind. He brought me tea in bed, massaged my shoulders, and told me how happy I made him. And there I was, lying next to the man I had once thought was the love of my life, feeling only disgust. The next day I called Natasha and told her about my plan. Are you sure this is a good idea? She asked. It could be dangerous. I have everything under control, I said. The main thing is that you and your team are there at the right time. We will be, she promised. But I'm still worried. These people are professional scammers. They might suspect something. They're too focused on getting the house to notice the details. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. I spent the next 2 days preparing the trap. I hired an older actress to play my grandmother and made a deal with a real notary to help me. Natasha organized a group of police officers to be there when the papers were signed. When the weekend came, the plan was ready. I told Dmitry we were going to my grandmother's house in the suburbs. But actually, we went to a house I rented just for the day, where the fake grandmother and the notary were waiting for us. As expected, Elena Petrovna insisted on coming with us. She brought her notary, a short, balding man with sweaty hands and nervous eyes. I knew right away he was a fake helper. This is Viktor Andreevich, Elena Petrovna said, an experienced lawyer who will help with the papers. We arrived at the house. It was a small one-story cottage with a garden, perfect for an elderly woman. What a cozy house, Elena Petrovna said, looking around. But it needs repairs. It must be hard for Grandma to take care of it. She's managing, I said, opening the door with my key. Inside, my grandmother was waiting, the actress Nina Mikhailovna I found through a theater group. She was perfect for the role, gray-haired, a little bent over, with sharp eyes behind her glasses. Veronica, my granddaughter, she said, opening her arms. You've finally come. I hugged her and whispered, everything is ready. She nodded slightly. Grandma, let me introduce you. This is my husband Dmitry and his mother, Elena Petrovna. The old lady looked them over carefully. Come in, let's have some tea. And who is this? She asked, pointing at the notary. Viktor Andreevich, a lawyer, Elena Petrovna said. We thought he could help with the papers you mentioned. Oh yes, the papers, Nina Mikhailovna said, squinting slyly. I've already invited my notary. In the living room sat the real notary, Igor Valentinovich, and another man in a suit, a plainclothes police officer, one of Natasha's team. Elena Petrovna frowned. Why 2 notaries? For safety, said the grandmother. This is an important matter. We all sat around the table. Igor Valentinovich took out a folder with papers. So, we're here to officially sign the deed of gift for the house at this address. 1 minute. Elena Petrovna interrupted. Maybe some tea first? We can talk about the details in a relaxed way. We'll have tea later, the grandmother said firmly. First, the business. I had already made up my mind. I wanted to give the house to my dear granddaughter. She is the only one who really takes care of me. Dmitry looked tense, wiping sweat from his forehead. He was nervous because things were not going their way. What about your son-in-law? Their notary Victor asked. Maybe we should put the house in both their names? No, the grandmother said, shaking her head. Only in the granddaughter's name. That's how it is in our family. Property goes through the female line. Elena Petrovna tried to argue, but then the doorbell rang. I went to open it, knowing who it was. Natasha stood there in her police uniform with 2 officers behind her. Good afternoon, she said officially. We have information about a possible attempt at real estate fraud at this address. When I brought the police into the room, everything went silent. Dmitry went pale, and Elena Petrovna held her bag so tight her knuckles turned white. What's going on? Dmitry asked nervously. I stood in the middle of the room and spoke calmly. When I married, I never told my husband or mother-in-law that the house we live in actually belongs to me. And I was right not to tell them because right after the wedding, they came to me with a serious talk. In my story, I told them the house belonged to my grandmother and she let us live here. At first, their talk seemed harmless. But then my mother-in-law gave me a document and said the grandmother was old and we should get her to sign it so we could take the house for ourselves. To be honest, I laughed. Dmitry's face twisted with anger and fear. What nonsense are you talking about? He said. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, Is it nonsense? Then what about this? I showed the flash drive. Here is all the proof about your past victims, Dmitry. Or should I call you Dmitry Sokolov? Or Grimov? Elena Petrovna jumped up. That's slander. We're leaving. Not so fast, Natasha said, blocking the door. We have enough reason to arrest you both for fraud. And I also have the statements from your victims, I added. And a recording of you planning how to take Grandma's house. The grandmother stood up and took off her glasses. Can I go now? My part is done. Thank you, Nina Mikhailovna. I smiled at the actress. You did great. Dmitry finally knew he was caught. He ran to the door, but was stopped by the police. They read him and Elena Petrovna their rights and took them away. When it was over, Natasha and I were left alone in the room. I can't believe it worked, she sighed. Their own confidence was their downfall. I sat down, suddenly feeling tired. They were so sure they'd get the house that they didn't see the trap. 6 months later, the trial happened. Thanks to the proof and the women's testimonies, Dmitry and his mother went to prison for fraud. I got divorced and started over. The house stayed mine like it always was, but now it felt different. It was a place where I learned a hard lesson about trust and lies. Sometimes I think I could have just left Dmitry when I first found out. But then he would have found another victim, and it would have happened again. Now that justice is done, I don't regret what I did. The only lesson I learned is, trust but always check. And never let others make plans for your life. That's my story. Like and subscribe to the channel.
M.